John Hagelin, Ph.D., is a world-renowned quantum physicist, leading science and public policy expert, and international director of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. Dr. Hagelin has conducted pioneering research at CERN, the European Center for Particle Physics, and SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, and is responsible for the development of a highly successful grand unified field theory based on the superstring. His scientific contributions in the fields of electroweak unification, grand unification, supersymmetry, and cosmology include some of the most cited references in the physical sciences. In addition, Dr. Hagelin has spent much of the past quarter century leading a scientific investigation into the foundations of human consciousness. In his book, Manual for Perfect Government, Dr. Hagelin shows how, through educational programs that develop human consciousness, it is possible to overcome acute social problems and to enhance governmental effectiveness. Dr. Hagelin received his Ph.D. from Harvard University in 1981. He is currently director of the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy and professor of physics at Maharishi University of Management, Minister of Science and Technology of the global country of world peace, and President of the U.S. Peace Government. Dr. Hagelin is now establishing a University of World Peace in Washington, D.C.
Good evening, and welcome to the first International Conference of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. I'm John Hagelin, the International Director of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace, and we are broadcasting this conference today live from the Sheraton Moria Hotel in New Delhi via internet webcast and also via telephone conference. For those connected via telephone, you should be receiving shortly a video DVD of this conference proceedings and will therefore have a better opportunity to view the scientific graphics relevant to this discussion. I'm welcoming today scientists from around the world who are taking a leading role in the Global Union of Scientists for Peace and participating in this first international conference. Welcoming leading scientists from the United States and from Canada, Mexico, India, Japan, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Brazil, South Africa, Moldova, Montenegro, Ghana, and the possibility of others connecting at the last moment. We are going to proceed quickly in this brief international conference to cover a range of very important topics relevant to the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. A brief outline of what we need to cover in a short period will be, first, a quick introduction. What is the Global Union of Scientists for Peace, for those who are new to this global organization? Second, a quick discussion of the important need for the Global Union of Scientists for Peace to emerge in the world at this time. Three, and primarily, we're going to be discussing important breakthroughs in the field of peace and the field of conflict resolution, focusing today on this concept and methodology known as preventative defense. That is, diffusing regional tensions and thereby preventing the outbreak of violence and war through proven scientific methods. And finally, a few organizational points, including financial support for our Global Union activities in different countries throughout the world. First, a quick introduction to what is the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. Global Union of Scientists for Peace is a very powerful global network of preeminent scientists dedicated to the cause of peace and the cause of nuclear disarmament in this precarious time. The purpose of this global union of top scientists throughout the world is to showcase breakthrough research in the field of peace and conflict prevention, and to dynamically support the implementation of practical programs that have demonstrated their ability to prevent violent conflict and to promote peace and national security on a scientific basis. We, the presidents of the Global Union of Scientists for Peace of many countries throughout the world, over 40 countries throughout the world, hold high positions of scientific authority in the fields of science and public policy, and collectively we can exert a very powerful influence on public policy and public opinion in the cause of peace. In addition, as a global organization, we have access to financial resources through remunerative peaceful projects. For example, large-scale organic agricultural production and global distribution of organic agricultural produce to bring revenues to support peace-promoting projects in different countries throughout the world. All of this, these positions of high prestige and influence in our countries, a global organization which gives us much greater power and reach, proven, powerful programs that are truly effective in preventing war and promoting peace, and financial basis for our peace-promoting projects, all of this gives us much more than mere academic importance. All of this translates into significant national and global influence. So that is the Global Union of Scientists for Peace. Why create this Global Union of Scientists for Peace? Well, I think the reason is pretty clear. For 50 years, since the founding of what is called Pugwash, scientists with a conscience have taken a united stand against nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, and even against the institution of war. But despite our highly rational appeals to governments concerning, in particular, the grave threat to mankind and to our global ecosystems posed by nuclear weapons, nevertheless, nuclear proliferation continues to this very day. The politicians' ability, we have found through experience, to truly comprehend the dangers of nuclear war are limited by their own level of consciousness, are limited by their own level of cognitive development. In addition, those few politicians who are committed to the cause of preventing war and eliminating weapons of mass destruction, they are often restricted in their ability to act towards this extent by the collective consciousness of the citizens of their country. And the collective consciousness of many countries is really still driven by fear and narrow-minded nationalism, so that the people don't support peaceful initiatives even from their elected leaders. And we're seeing increasingly in the world today, due to fear, the citizens of many countries, through the democratic process, are electing leaders such as George Bush or such as Hamas in the recent Palestinian elections, electing leaders that are not themselves committed to the cause of peace. So clearly we need a more effective way to raise the collective consciousness of the citizens of a country to provide broad-based support for proven peaceful initiatives. So the Global Union of Scientists for Peace was founded in part to employ proven approaches to dynamically promote peace and to prevent the outbreak of war, including programs to actually raise the collective consciousness of a country and diffuse acute stress and tensions and fear and narrow-minded nationalism from the collective consciousness of a country to promote a peaceful and coherent national consciousness. We're going to be focusing for the next hour or so on important scientific content, recent breakthroughs in the field of peace and in the field of conflict prevention. These developments collectively are known as preventative defense. That means preventing the outbreak of war by neutralizing the tensions and enmity in a potential adversary, so countries don't rise in war against one another. We'll be explaining this in detail in the tremendous scientific, theoretical, and empirical support for this innovative but effective approach, beginning with a very, very sort of brief, almost crude introduction and overview to give some intuitive sense for the subject, followed by a more thorough scientific presentation of the theoretical foundations for this preventative approach to defense, followed by a discussion of the empirical evidence that powerfully supports the effectiveness and cost-effectiveness of this new approach, followed by practical steps of implementation, things that we could do, for example, as scientists in our countries to ensure the rapid implementation of these preventative means to defense, and by eventually preventing war and putting an end to the institution of war as an instrument of foreign policy, rendering weapons, especially weapons of mass destruction, a thing of the past, rendering them obsolete by preventing the very outbreak of war. Is this possible, practically speaking? And we will discuss now some scientific evidence that it is. very practical. So let us introduce, on a very simple level at first, the idea of prevention of war. It is well known that we are living today in an epidemic of stress. On the individual level, the level of human physiology, we see an alarming rise of stress-related illness, including stroke, heart disease, drug dependency and drug abuse, violent behavior. All of these are symptoms of acute individual stress. Similarly, on a societal level, because society is composed of individuals, we see rising symptoms of stress on a societal scale. And this includes societal diseases such as crime, terrorism, domestic violence, even terrorism and war. It is the leading theory in the field of conflict resolution today that the first stage in the emergence of war is mounting tensions among rival factions in critical hotspots throughout the world, including political and ethnic and religious tensions that fuel violence, terrorism, and conflict. So it is commonly understood that the driving factor, the driving cause in the outbreak of war is mounting tensions. Now, in the field of medical science, it has become increasingly commonplace and extensively scientifically documented that physiological stress and the symptoms of stress, ill health, antisocial behavior, can be quickly relieved through certain stress-reducing programs, especially stress-reducing meditation, like transcendental meditation, that give deep rest and dissolve stress very efficiently in the individual physiology, resulting in behaviors that are simply less stressed, less narrowly self-centered, and more expansive and comprehensive global thinking and global behavior. On a societal level, there is extensive research over the past 20 years at least that supports that the approach of stress management on a societal scale, strategically applied in critical spots throughout the world, can effectively diffuse societal stress and tension, leading to the prevention of outbreak and war. Now, this may seem surprising that the introduction of, for example, transcendental meditation to even a relatively small subportion of a population has been so effective, as we'll see it has, in the reduction of violent conflict. So I'd like to explain a little bit more about how that works. But first, take a look for a moment at the very first study that was published in the prestigious Yale Journal of Conflict Resolution, testing the effect of this meditative intervention in the prevention of war in the Middle East. Indeed, this experiment took place during the peak of the Lebanon War, and it assessed the influence of groups of many hundreds of meditating experts practicing one widely practiced and extensively researched scientific program for the reduction of stress, transcendental meditation, as introduced many years ago by His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. That technique, which is certainly the world's most widely practiced, extensively researched, and broadly prescribed of any technique today for the prevention of stress and stress-related illness and for the full development of the individual health and human potential. Several hundred people embedded in the heart of Jerusalem and in the Middle East produced enough of a relief in tension among those individuals and all those around them that there was a marked reduction, 80% drop in war deaths, war-related injuries. There was rapid progress towards peace. There was reduced levels of conflict in all possible measures. And if you look at this chart, this shows a 2-month period where there's a dotted line that moves up and down that measures the daily numbers of volunteers collectively meditating as a group in Jerusalem, which rises and falls on a daily basis over the 2-month duration of this experiment. And superimposed on the dotted line is a solid line, which is labeled Composite Index of Quality of Life. But essentially, this composite index, or solid line, is the weighted sum of war deaths, war injuries,